Hello, everybody. We're going to do chapter 11 this morning. Gosh, it's cold here where I live. We've got -2 outside and lots of snow and ice and all sorts of things. It's very chilly. I wonder what it's like where you are. Anyway, here we go. This is chapter 11, and chapter 11 is called Suspicious Minds. When I wake up in my own bed, it's almost worse than the alternative, waking up in a prison cell. By now, the dragon and his brothers would have realized I've broken my side of the deal, and it's only a matter of time before they frame me. I wonder when they'll come for me. I wonder who will come for me. Will it be the police? Will they let the foreman punish me first? Will it be the dragon himself? I stare up at the crack in the ceiling. It seems to reach a little further every time I look at it. The heat when I step onto the street is overpowering. Even the shady back streets are hot and airless. It's got to rain soon. I pass a stall selling coconuts and stop to buy some milk. I imagine that the coconut was picked from the giant tree on that faraway island Grandma told me about, and I start to feel stronger with every sip. But then I turn the corner, and the factory comes into view, and I realize something is horribly wrong. There is a crowd outside the factory, and as I get closer, I notice the doors are locked. The factory doors are never locked this time in the morning. Standing in front of the crowd on an upturned plastic crate is the foreman. My stomach squirms as though the coconut milk has gone sour. I shuffle between the scooters and cars in the traffic jam and join the back of the crowd. The cigarette hangs from the foreman's mouth, and he looks down on us through the smoke as more and more workers join the crowd. I spot Belmonte on the back of Roshi's Manchester United shirt and make my way over to him. He's so busy rolling a stone beneath his foot that he doesn't notice me at first. "Hi, Roshi, how's it going?" And he looks up and I see how tired he is. "Oh, not bad." "Do you know what's going on?" I ask. He shakes his head. "No idea. They're not letting anyone in for some reason." I imagine the foreman announcing that there is something at the factory, or someone at the factory, who thinks it's acceptable to steal. Everyone looks around at one another, tutting and shaking their heads. Then I imagine the foreman calling someone out of the factory to identify the thief. It's the dragon. Even though I try to hide, he still manages to point me out, and I get dragged in front of everyone and humiliated. I try to think of something else. Roshi is rolling the stone again, looking down. "What did you get up to last night?" I ask. "Huh? Nothing. You?" "Not much. For some reason, I don't feel like telling him about Grandma. My parents want to send me to school when we get the pay rise." "Lucky you." Roshi looks at his feet the whole time. More workers press in behind us so that if I wanted to escape, I would have to push through a wall of bodies. The air smells of sweat and soil and petrol. I watch the foreman's face over the shoulder of the person in front, and he takes one last look around before spitting his cigarette onto the ground. "All right, quiet all of you. Listen up." Everyone stops talking, but the foreman still has to shout over the traffic. "Most of you are probably wondering why I've gathered you out here this morning, although at least one person knows the reason why." The foreman pauses and squints into the crowd. The sun seems to get hotter with each passing second, and I can feel the sweat trickling across my scalp. Roshi watches the foreman, but his foot keeps dragging the stone from side to side. "It displeases me to announce that we have a thief in our midst." For a moment, it feels as though the coconut milk is about to surge up into my mouth. But I clamp my lips together and swallow as hard as I can. The workers around me start murmuring, and their bodies press closer against my skin. "Quiet! Last night, somebody broke into the factory and stole a pair of boots. The police have been informed, but it will be a lot better for the perpetrator if he or she comes forward now and confesses." Everyone shuffles and looks around at one another. Roshi lifts his foot and stares at the round stone beneath. There is a deep groove in the dirt where it has been rolled from side to side. The dragon must have already sent someone to steal the boots, which means it won't be long until I become the prime suspect. The crowd presses in. Someone's hairy arm, slick with sweat, slides across my neck as they jostle for space. I know this was an inside job, and if anyone is found to be withholding information, they'll be punished just as severely as the thief. In the meantime, everyone will suffer as a result. Does anyone have anything they wish to say? The foreman stares into the crowd, and for a second our eyes meet. Then he steps down from his box and turns towards the factory. Very well, he says, but you've been warned. The foreman punishes us by making everyone work on unfamiliar sections. Me and Roshi get put on boxing. Sometimes it feels as though I spend my whole life boxing boots. The foreman paces along the row, saying, you will work on this section for as long as it takes to find the thief. And if we're behind at the end of the day, you'll go back to your stations and keep working until the orders have been met. Are you sure you don't know anything about what happened? You know my office door is always open if you want to have a chat. In the meantime, I suppose I'll just suspend everybody's pay. Maybe that'll help you to remember. This is bad news. If our pay is suspended, it means we might never get paid again. And if we never get paid again, we won't receive the pay rise, and I won't be able to pay for Grandma's medication, and I definitely won't be able to save enough money to go to the Bernabeu. After about an hour of pacing around each section, the foreman goes up to the office and closes the door. Roshi, I whisper, do you think the dragon hired someone to steal the boots? Roshi frowns and shakes his head. I don't know, he says, wrapping a pair of boots in paper and putting them in a box. Maybe. Another pair goes in another box, but we really shouldn't be talking. And another pair. The boss is really angry. And another. He's looking for any excuse to get rid of people. And another. So leave me alone. The foreman reappears on the walkway and places one hand on the railing. In the other, he holds up a wad of cash. Listen up, all of you. I'm offering a reward to anyone who comes forward with information about the thief. A one-off cash sum. He waves the money. And you don't need to worry about being viewed as a Confederate. I'm willing to overlook the fact you may have been concealing information. Come and see me whenever you like. Now, get back to work. Everyone in the factory seems to be whispering all of a sudden, but Roshi looks like he's in a trance. Tsk, I say, did you hear that? A one-off cash sum, like the lottery. How much money do you reckon he was holding? I don't know, Roshi says. What does it matter? Well, if we knew who stole the boots, that money could be ours. But we don't know who stole the boots, he says. I know, but we could try and work it out. We know the dragon must have hired someone. So we've already got a lead. And if we find out who he hired, I'll be off the hook. And the reward might be big enough to cover Grandma's medication and a trip to Madrid. Roshi opens his mouth as if to say something, but instead he just huffs and goes back to boxing shoes. We could make it fun, like being detectives. Do you remember that television show we watched? You could be my sidekick. No, Booty. Okay. I'll be the sidekick. But I still get to carry a gun and drive the car. First, we have to start looking for clues. We also need to find out whether there were any witnesses. Oh, forget about it, Booty. The dragon wouldn't be stupid enough to leave any clues. The whole idea is stupid. Just forget about it. I shove a pair of boots into a box and chuck them on top of the pile. Why are you being so stubborn, I ask? And why won't you help me? Roshi pretends not to hear me. I ram another pair of boots into a box. During my lunch break, I go to the canteen and try to think of ways to solve the mystery over a tray of rice and sauce of the day. At the table next to me, a couple of women have have a whispered argument, which makes it hard to concentrate. Thankfully, they soon get up and leave, but I begin to realize that catching the thief might be harder than I thought. These things are so much easier to solve on television. The buzzer goes and I leave the canteen. As I walk towards the boxing section, the foreman comes out onto the walkway and hits the railing with his rattan. "Go back to your regular stations," he shouts. "The thief has been found." Then he marches back into his office and slams the door. There is a lot of noise and confusion as all the workers try to reach their stations. The aisles are too narrow for so many people. And one girl shrieks as she is tripped and trampled on. And by the time I finally sit down at my sewing machine, Roshi is already hard at work on a pair of boots. "It looks like we won't be getting that reward," I say. Roshi doesn't say anything. He doesn't even look at me. What if he spoke to the foreman when I was on my break? What if he told him what he saw me doing? No, Roshi would never do that. I start sewing an upper, but every few seconds I look around to see if anyone is missing. I desperately want to know who spoke to the foreman. Maybe the dragon is sitting in the office right now. Eventually, the foreman emerges and strides along the walkway. I try not to stare as he walks down the steps and paces across the factory, but I can't help it. He is still carrying the rattan. The foreman looks straight ahead, tapping the rattan against his leg. As he gets closer, I notice he's whistling a tune. When he gets to the end of my row, he stops walking, stops whistling, stops tapping the rattan. Then he turns and heads towards me. "Roshi, how could you?" I look down at my machine. The needle punches stitches into the material. I feel a gust of warm air as the foreman passes me, and as I follow him out of the corner of my eye, I notice that Roshi is dripping with sweat. The foreman suddenly lunges at the girl sitting next to Roshi. She screams as she is dragged from her seat. With one hand clutching her arm and the other swiping the rattan at the back of her thighs, the foreman marches her along the road towards the exit. For the first time I can recall, the factory is completely silent, except for the girl's screams and the foreman's angry voice, and the swish and smack of the rattan. "This will teach you to steal from your employer," the foreman shouts, his face almost purple with rage. "You'll never work again, do you hear me? You're finished." But it wasn't me," the girl sobs, trying to fend off the rattan with her free hand. "Why, you would say that. All thieves are liars. It's second nature. From what I hear, you've been bragging about your crime, promising to do it as many times as you can get away with it. I'd whip you all the way to the police station if I thought you were worth the effort. But you're not. You can fend for yourself on the streets, you little tikus." The girl opens her mouth to say something, but all that comes out is a small wail. Her cheeks shine beneath the electric lights, but her gaping mouth is black. "What is it?" the foreman says, shaking her arm and holding her on the spot. "Have you got something to say for yourself? Come on then, let's hear it. Everyone is listening." The girl gasps, trying to catch her breath. Finally, she mumbles, "What about my family?" The foreman laughs. "Ha! What about your family?" He suddenly becomes angry again. "Well, what about them?" He squeezes the girl's arm until she shrieks. "You should have thought about your family before you started stealing from me. I'm sure you can support them with the proceeds of your theft. Now, get out of my sight." The foreman pushes the girl through the door, giving her one final blow with the rattan. He slams the door shut and turns back to face the room. "What are you all looking at?" he says, wiping the spit from round his mouth. "Get back to work, or you'll be out on the street with that piece of rubbish." Suddenly, all the usual factory noises return. The hum of machines, the rustle of paper, the creak of chairs. But above them all is the girl outside, crying and moaning and banging on the door. The foreman crosses the factory and climbs the stairs to his office. He leans the rotund against the wall outside and quietly closes the door. My heart beats so hard, it feels as though my entire body is shaking. When I look across at Roshi's pale face, his hair spiked with sweat, I know better than to say anything. Instead, we work in silence, listening to the girl wailing in the street outside. When I get home, I don't tell anyone about my day.